I didn't like the first Paranormal Activity film twice. I tried it twice, didn't care for it, but I decided to watch the second film. And, well, I will say before I go any further, I'm going to watch the third film because it seems better. I will reserve judgment, but it seems better. But with regards to Paranormal Activity 2, I think pretty much everything I'm going to say, apart from maybe a couple of small things of praise, completely mirrors everything I said about the first film. All of the problems are still the same. This was released in 2010s, directed by Tod Williams. It's written by Michael R. Perry, Christopher Landon, and Tom Pabst. And we have a cast including Sprague Grayden, Brian Boland, Molly Ephraim, and various others. And I apologise if I mispronounced any of those names. And again, we have a family in a house, and we're looking through various cameras, and in theory, scary things happen. And I say in theory because there was nothing scary about this. I think I mentioned in my review of the first film that it feels like it's a horror film for people who don't like horror films, because it seems like it's trying to be suspenseful, but it never delivers. And there is nothing scary about this at all. The camera work is good. I think it works very well. Visually, it looks quite appealing. Certainly when we have the scenes at night, I really love how that looks. And that's certainly true with the first film as well. The family, I think it was a good decision to include the baby. It makes it a little different to the first film. And we have the use of a baby monitor, which could have been a lot scarier. The crackly sounds of a baby monitor definitely could have lent into that a little bit more. But the characters were fine, not that interesting. I think I liked them more than I did the characters in the first film, but maybe only marginally. And for the bulk of the film, nothing happens. It's not as loud as the first film. I mentioned in the review for the previous one, not that I want to give away everything I mentioned about the first film, but I mentioned that at one point it gets really loud. And I think, in my opinion, they were making things loud because loud noises can be scary, but it wasn't scary. But in this one, they didn't rely on that as much. It's not quite as noisy, and I really appreciate that, because loud noise is uncomfortable, not necessarily scary within the context of this film. So there are some small improvements, but they're teeny tiny. And it just can't call itself a horror film. It almost feels, and this isn't, in my opinion, it's not what they were going for. There's no evidence of this, but it kind of feels like a horror parody. If you've watched horror parodies, you'll know, or perhaps you'll agree, that they can sometimes be a tiny bit scary because they're good at building suspense. And they might have some jump scares, but they're immediately followed by comedy. And that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like they're parodying horror, because it never delivers, but we do have that bit of suspense. We're watching through the camera. It seems like something's about to happen, and then it never ever does. So Paranormal Activity 2 is not a good film. It's almost as bad as the first film. I think some good decisions were made, but in general, it's not a horror film. There's nothing scary about this at all. And it's not just that I'm a seasoned horror fan, and as many horror fans will agree, it becomes harder to feel scared because you get used to the films. But I can't even identify aspects that would be scary to somebody who's perhaps very new to horror, or who doesn't have a very high threshold for horror. So it does feel like it's a horror film for people who don't like horror, because it tries to be scary and it just never ever delivers. But as I said, I am going to watch the third film because I don't know anything about it. I don't know how well it's been received. I just looked at the brief description and I thought, well, it sounds like it has potential. So maybe things will improve, but if the third one isn't any good, if there's not really any significant change in a positive direction, I don't think I'll go further than that. But time will tell, and for now, I can sum up by saying, if you've seen Paranormal Activity 1, you've basically seen the second film. It's not a good film, and it's definitely not a scary film.